There we go. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us today. We are very lucky to have Ben Driehuis here. Ben has had an amazing career spanning both AAA and indie development, and we're really looking forward to deep diving with him and finding out more about his career and any tips he has for people starting out. Before we get into that, though, if you have a question for Ben, we may be able to answer it on stream. Pop it in the chat, and then we'll see if we can find a little bit of time to get to it. There may be some stuff he's not allowed to talk about, like the cool project he's working on now. But if you have any other questions about his career, make sure you get it in there, and we'll try and answer it. But with that, we'll pass you over to Selena.
Okay, thank you, Craig. Thank you so much for joining us, Ben. We're super happy to have you here today. But for those in the audience who don't know who you are, why don't we start off with you introducing yourself, where you're working now, and your current role?
Yeah, sure thing. I'm working currently for a company called Uppercut Games. Been working there for almost 7 years now, which is quite a while. And Uppercut Games was formed by a few ex-2K Australia devs who decided to go off and make their own thing, and then along the way they've picked up a few of us to help them out. So that's pretty cool. I'm currently a senior programmer there, and I've been in the industry now, what is it, 12 years, 13, 14 years? I don't know. It's getting long enough that I don't remember. So I started at Irrational Games, 2K Australia. After I left there, I did a few things with Tony Albrecht at Overbite, and then went to Uppercut from there.
That's so awesome. And you started right here at AIE as an alumni. What course did you do, and what year did you graduate?
So I graduated 2006, and I did the diploma. Initially, it was the diploma anyway. That was 2 years. And I did do the advanced diploma, which came along pretty late in the course, I remember. But yeah, it was a 2-year diploma I did.
Okay, so you already talked a little bit about some of the places that you've worked at since graduating. What were some of the games that you got to work on?
Yeah, so I got thrown in pretty much at the deep end of Bioshock. Was the first game I worked on. And the PS3 port in particular was one I worked a lot on. That was an interesting project to be thrown on as a junior. It's a pretty tough one, that was actually. A lot of pretty low-level engine work and optimization work, which was a bit strange for myself being a gameplay programmer, but I was the only gameplay programmer on the team, but I learned a lot from that, so that was really cool. And then I did a lot of work on XCOM the Bureau, which is the XCOM that most people don't like. But I got a lot of opportunity on that game in particular because most of our more senior developers were onto Bioshock 2, so I got to write a lot of the systems, which was really awesome. Then obviously Bioshock Infinite from there, got to finish that. I actually finished that game remotely from back in Adelaide. So that was my first taste of remote work. And at Uppercut, I've worked on games like Epoch, Submerged, which was our first UE4 project. Went and did a small mobile game after that called Danger Dodgers. And then our last game that I can talk about was City of Brass. And we are now on another project, which is on Stadia, because that's announced, but that's about all I can talk about there, unfortunately.
That's all right. I can see the trailer for City of Brass playing just on your background as well. And the super exciting thing is a lot of our current students, they actually get into games development after playing some of the games you've worked at, like the Bioshock series as well. And they get really inspired by especially when from 2K Australia and some of the projects they've worked on. So you've worked on all these really exciting and big projects. What was your favorite project to have worked on, and why?
I would say City of Brass is my favorite, mainly because Submerged was our first UE4 project, but City of Brass was our chance to make a game that we wanted to make with understanding the tools we're making it with. And I really enjoy working with the Uppercut team. We're all old friends and we've been doing it a while. So it was really, I don't want to say easy because it's not, games are never easy, but it was in terms of working the processes, it was easy. So it was, we didn't have, we got to just make the game and learn the things behind that rather than having to work out an engine or a tech or trying to work with a publisher to work with their demands. We got to just do what we wanted to do efficiently. So that was really fun.
Okay, awesome. And where did all of your interest on games development start? Like, what sparked your initial interest, and especially as a programmer as well, what attracted you to programming compared to art or design?
Well, I mean, programming was probably my main interest because my artistic skills are very poor. I do like to throw programming art at the artists at times just to keep them on their toes, but it's not very good. But I mean, I grew up and I always had a few old school consoles like a Commodore 64, and I had an Amiga for a bit. But when we got our first PC, which was mainly thanks to TIE Fighter, because an uncle of mine had the game and I saw it and I wanted to play it, and I had to get a PC to do that. So I bugged my parents to use my uni money that they'd saved away to buy a computer instead, which frankly they did. And then I started just, once I had it, I realized you could change games. So I started just modding different games, and I just enjoyed that so much. I never really thought about the career aspect. I just was like, well, this is what I want to do. I want to make games. And yeah, the programming thing, I liked the scripting side of things. And when I eventually went to TAFE to do programming, I learned I was good at it too. So yeah, then from then it was all pieces fell into place, I guess.
That's awesome. And you did mention that you did some modding for some of the games, which some people in the audience may never have heard of. What were some of these games, and what kind of mods did you actually make?
So I messed around with older games like Doom and Quake and doing level stuff. But one of the big ones was probably Jukes 3D because it was very easy to do some interesting things with the level editor back then. You could really script some sequences. I did a little bit of Half-Life stuff, but by then I'd almost started learning programming, so I started wanting to actually program instead of modding. But yeah, that's probably the main ones. Yeah, it's a long time ago now. I was a Unreal Tournament as well. That was always nice to mod.
Yeah, definitely. So how did you hear about AIE, and what made you want to study there?
So once I'd gone to TAFE and realized I was good at programming, I really wanted to get into games, and I didn't know anyone who was a programmer. I didn't know anyone who was worked in games. And so I remember just looking around to see what was in Australia, and the AIE popped up as one of the places. Someone else I had also been was thinking about doing, I think they're going to do art, and they'd come across the AIE too. So we both talked about it for a bit and thought, I'll go to Canberra and check out what the campus was like and talk to the teachers to see if it was what I was after. So I went and did the 1200k journey to come and check it out, and yeah, really liked the campus, and the teachers were really great to talk to. They gave me all the answers I needed, showed me what the projects their students have worked on, and I like Canberra. Being from Adelaide, I'm used to a smaller city, so Canberra felt nice from that as well. So all those things just all made sense to me.
I think Craig would love to hear all the nice things you say about Canberra. And I'm really glad that investment paid off. You flew all the way to Canberra just to see the campus. So from your memory, what was AIE like? How were your teachers, classes, and fellow students?
Yeah, I mean, the most interesting thing about Canberra as a place to go study was no one there was really from Canberra. Everyone had come from different places, and back when I studied as well, there wasn't options to do AIE in Melbourne or Sydney or anywhere else. It was just Canberra. So I don't know if it's like that anymore. So yeah, we really became really close, all the group, which was really good. So we would go write games all week and then hang out, talk, get games on the weekends. And the teachers were great. They always had time to chat. And I'm a bit of a workaholic, so I was just pretty much writing games the whole time, and really enjoying learning how to put games together, because while I'd done programming, I hadn't really understood how to make games until that point. And I felt like the more I wrote during that time, the better I would understand the process, because making games isn't just about, solving the small problems that are in front of you. It's about the complete package, and all the things which are, for lack of a better word, boring, like getting all your input systems sorted and your general menu loops and all that stuff, which is not pretty but needs to be done.
And your major project with your team at AIE and your personal tech demo as well, they were so impressive that it actually landed you your first job at 2K Games, where you got to work on the first Bioshock series, which is very award-winning, very famous. Can you talk a little bit about these projects that you did to get you that job?
Yeah, sure thing. So this is the group major project on the screen now. So we took that to, was it called GCAP then, or was it something else? I can't remember. Again, so long ago. But yeah, this is our major project. So it was a few months of work for 6-7 of us. Again, so long ago, I can't exactly remember. But yeah, it was a really fun project. This fun fact about this is the level editor was Max. I think it was Max, 3ds Max. I worked with a designer named Shane Traufer on this side of things, and he would just lay out the whole level in Max and then put some custom data into all the objects, and then I'd import that scripting and put it straight into our levels like that. So that was pretty cool. It's actually a shame that we didn't push that further, because that project, we could have done a lot of scripting work with that. We had a whole system in there. But yeah, it was fun, and we got to show it at the conference. And I remember the Chrome people came over to talk about it, because they were just doing Tide, the Tasmanian Tiger, and so it was a similar style game. So they were really interested to just see how we did things. And so yeah, it was good. And my tech demo, it was. It's like not the most fancy thing, and everything in there is mine, including the really, really bad art. See, I'm not lying. I'm not good at art. And I only learned how to do that because of the advanced diploma. But yeah, it was mainly a demonstration to show a complete sort of flow for a game, as well as the AI systems. There's a lot going on under the hood that doesn't really show up very well, but again, I was hoping that because I was showing it to a programmer, they'd be able to look for the code and understanding of what I was trying to do. And it's probably the most impressive demo ever given to someone. And back then, of course, we didn't have Unreal or any of that stuff to work on. So this is most of the stuff you just have a really much of a render as pretty much all you have to work with. But yeah, I think the fact that I concentrated on making a very clean implementation, the code was clean, all the classes were defined well, they did what they had to do, and I think I knew that was one of my strengths, so I thought I'd lean on that heavily, which I think helped me.
That's awesome. I think even looking at it now, it must be more like 10, 12 years old, this tech demo. It still looks really good. Definitely. Well, compared to
I was
what I
surprised
can
it
do
ran,
nowadays.
actually. I was expecting it not to work at all, but it did, so that was good.
Yeah. it was tested through time, and it won that test. So what was the interview process like at 2K Australia? It was such a big studio. It was a AAA studio, and you were just a fresh graduate. What was that whole process like?
Scary. I remember I went back to Adelaide after I finished AE to. I didn't know what I was going to do next at that point, but I still had my place in Canberra, so I was just going back for Christmas and a few weeks of recuperation, I guess. And I got the call that my resume got to the test stage, so I did my testing from Adelaide, which passed, and then they wanted to do a phone interview, so I did that from my mum's house, and that went well. And so then they gave me the call to ask me to come in, so I had to cancel my trip there and fly back, and entered a room full of 6, 7 other people who I'd never met before in my life, and they asked me questions about programming and game development and stuff, and I just hoped I did the best. Really, I was really nervous. But obviously I did a good job because they gave me the job, which was nice. And one of the interviewees is now my lead programmer at Uppercut, one of the directors. So yeah, he was pretty happy with my responses, and he was impressed that because one of our AIE things was a multiplayer Unreal mod, and I talked about the way we had done things and how we got there. And so given they were an Unreal studio, that was pretty important to them.
Yeah, I can definitely imagine. But here you are. It's an industry veteran, very long way from the fresh graduate that you were. Um, and how do you think AIE helped you? What do you think the biggest benefit was for study at AIE?
It feels weird to be called a veteran, but I guess that is where I am now. I mean, the biggest benefit was just giving me a place to learn how to make games, and a place which was just all about that concept, and being able to share ideas with other students and the teachers, and get the time and the space to just make the mistakes you need to make to learn how to do your craft to an acceptable level where a studio can pick you up and take you on. I mean, it's hard to learn otherwise if you're just trying to make things. You get to that point where you hit a point you can't solve, and the AI was able to show me techniques that I wouldn't have come across as quickly.
That's awesome. And what does a day look like for you as a senior games developer or senior programmer? You have been working remotely, so what do you do on a daily basis?
Yeah, I've been working remotely for a while now. The whole time I've been with Uppercut, it's been remote. I think I've actually been to their studio 3 times, 6.5 years. So that's how remote I am. So it is interesting as a senior programmer being remote. So I get I'm pretty much left to my own devices most of the time. I'm expected to be able to take my tasks on and allocate my time effectively, do my scheduling and estimates, and just be proactive, really, make sure I'm on top of things. I also try and be very proactive with our other programmers. Not that we have a big team, but yeah, I try and make sure I'm available and helping them and reviewing what they're doing as well, and give Ryan as much help as I can, because he has a lot of business stuff to deal with as a lead programmer, which in a big AAA studio, you don't really have as much of that as he has. So I try and make sure I'm there to support him in all his problems. But yeah, I mean, it'd probably be different if I was in a studio, what my responsibilities would be like. In a AAA studio, I'd probably be doing a lot more mentoring and that sort of thing. But for our studio, it's not as big of a role to play there.
And compared to 2K Australia, would you say that was a big difference, working at a AAA studio compared to working at an indie studio?
There's definitely some big differences, especially the team size. In For Uppercut, I end up writing half the games to a third to a half of the games because our team size is just 3 programmers. So that's a lot of the game that has to be done by myself and the other 2. Whereas in AAA, obviously, you're such a big team. We have 20 programmers, I think, in Australia it's maybe 15 by the end. I don't remember. It's changed all the time, but that just means you're working on such a smaller piece of the game. You'd spend two years working on one game and pretty much just touching this one little part most of the time, becoming an expert in that little field. Whereas in indie, you have to be an expert in everything. We don't have any tech programmers, which we did have in AAA. So if there is low-level optimization work or graphics work, one of us just has to learn how to do it and solve that problem. So it's a lot more responsibility, broad strokes, but probably a lot less specialization would be the main difference.
Definitely. And well, let's talk a little bit about working from home. I'm sure everyone watching is probably very new to working from home for extended amounts of time, but you've been working from home since 2012. And what's that like? Is it more challenging compared to working in the office?
Different challenges, I think. I mean, for myself personally, it's enabled me to get my work-life balance and into the right level. Home for dinners when I was working in the studio, and now I'm always at dinner. I can just stop and go have dinner with the kids and stuff, and if I need to come back to work, I can. I'm also pretty lucky because when I came back to Adelaide, I knew this was probably going to be what I was going to do. I didn't really want to leave Adelaide. My family's here, my wife's family is here, and the kids, because she already had some kids, so their extended family's here too. So I knew that remote work was what I'd really hoped to do. So when we bought our house, I made sure that it had a big enough shed. So I have a pretty large shed office. It actually used to be larger than Uppercut's old office, which was pretty funny because it's just me in here. But that gives me a space away from the household to be able to work. So I have no distractions. That's probably the biggest thing. I don't have anyone coming to talk to me at my desk. I don't have kids coming in here. I can just solidly focus. So that's a big benefit for me in my situation. Obviously, the biggest drawback is I don't get to talk to the other people around the office. I don't hear what the other people are doing. So if someone is one of the other level designers or one of the other programmers is running to an issue which I can help with, I don't know. So yeah, that was hard. It's not as bad now that we're all working from home. It's actually become a bit easier because they are all communicating a lot more. So I can hear what's going on a lot more and notice. But before that, it was quite tough for me to be able to help out if someone didn't directly just go, "Hey Ben, this has happened." So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's good that we're getting better at working this way. For me, it's going to help a lot, and I think it's exciting too. I'd love to push remote work a lot further. There's a lot of great people around the world who really could work together better this way.
Cool. I might just jump in there. We've got because we're quickly running out of time. Mark in the chat has been asking a bunch of cool stuff. I might try and blend a whole bunch of his questions into one. I guess to start with, if someone's starting out, do you recommend them jump straight into some C++ or maybe try a slightly easier language to pick up?
I don't know, really. I jumped straight into C++ for myself because I think I learned Visual Basic and then C++ was the next language I learned. And C# wasn't around then either from memory, or if it was just not pushed at all by anything.
Yeah, well, because even the jungle game that you were showing us, that wasn't in Unity or in Unreal. You said the levels were laid out in 3D Studio Max, and what was the engine you were using?
It's called True Vision.
Nice, cool. We have a Steve W in the chat who I'm assuming knows the project and is knows that you also made it in True Vision as well.
Yeah, thanks, Steve.
Another question from Mark was and I guess you briefly touched on this as an indie dev. What other stuff outside of programming do you get up to? You mentioned that Ryan does a lot of like biz dev stuff in addition to just being able to sit there and programming. Was that a bit of a shock coming from AAA?
That was a shock. It was what I expected, which I knew would mean there was a bit more pressure on me because Ryan would be busy. I think the thing I mostly, for myself, I noticed is QA. You don't have it. So you have to do all the testing yourself. I mean, you test a bit in AAA, but you don't heavily test the system you're writing and all the permutations and going to random corners and getting stuck. You don't do that naturally as a programmer. You don't have the time to test everything like that to that level. So the other thing I've really had to get used to was putting time aside to do those things, to do what a QA person would do.
Is it hard to jump from being a specialist like at a bigger studio then to getting into more general work as an indie?
Not for me, but I was always a generalist. I always floated. I was lucky in that way. So for me, it's just been a natural extension of what I used to do, just with doing a lot more of the game itself. But then given the bureau, I did so much there too. Yeah. And a lot of that code base ended up going into Bioshock Infinite in the end, which was interesting because when we went onto that, they all the American Irrational in Boston knew who I was because they'd seen my name all through the code. So that was
we have
fun.
some footage of that if Craig wants to quickly bring that up on the screen. You did the whole UI for the game, I believe. You did a big part of that.
Yeah, all the core lower level stuff initially. I worked on the XCOM with a Flash. Well, he's not really a Flash artist, but that's what he was good at. He did all the art stuff, and I did the working with. What did we work with? Action scripts. He did the action script, and I did. What was that? I can't remember what the API within the C++ side was called, but yeah, that was fun.
It is a
so
character
much
with your
UI
name.
in this game.
Yeah, there's a character with your name in there as well that we noticed. So that's so super awesome. You get to put a sneaky little part of yourself into the final game.
Yeah, all the random agent names were from all the developers. So yeah, made sure everyone has names were in there. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, anyone who plays it might get one randomly of me or some of the others.
That's so cool. Okay, so as we wrap up, I'm sure a lot of our current students would love to know this. What do you think game studios look for the most in an applicant and their portfolio?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to understand what you're trying to, what job you're trying to go for, and making sure you're showing off your skills appropriately. It's not about having the most flashy, especially as a programmer, the most flashy demo. It's about making sure that what your code, the code you're presenting as part of it, is just well done. You want it to be clear. You don't want things like magic numbers and, for a better word, just putting hacks through it to make it work. It's better for it to be correct and look like you understand what you're doing. Good structure, consistency, all those things are good things that I would look for. And I guess also the other thing you need to be able to do is you need to be able to respond to, for a better term, criticism, because you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make lots of them. I still make mistakes. I still learn. And if you don't take on board the criticism, then and learn from it, then you're gonna. If you get really defensive about your work, you're probably not going to do very well. This is a team skill set. We work as a team. We're making games together as a team. So it's not really about the individual, and it's something I had to learn as a junior as well. And going through is you get attached to what you wrote, all the systems you make. You get really attached. It's yours, personal. Like this game in particular hurts to keep looking at it because I wrote so much that just didn't see the light of day. Because I mean, this stuff was really cool, and no one ever gets to play it, and that's a shame. Um, but yeah, you just have to. That's just happens. Your code doesn't make it, and your systems aren't good enough, and they won't go through. And it's not personal. It's just sometimes things don't go to plan.
Yeah, I totally understand that because sometimes I guess for the greater good, you have to sacrifice pieces of code or art that you've done here or there just so the game is more polished overall. I can imagine it must happen a lot, especially in the industry. Um, and so, what has the industry as a whole been like? What are some of the challenges that you face? And most importantly, what's your favorite part of working in the game industry?
The favorite part is easy. I like watching people play the games that I've worked on, and obviously having fun with it. It's nice to give those experiences to people. Submerged now was a very different game for what I've worked on, what most of the people at Uppercut have worked on, but it was a much more relaxation, exploration game. Um, and my mum played it. She hasn't played anything else I've made, but she played and finished this, and she raved about it to me, and as much as my mother raves about video games. But that was special to me to be able to have that opportunity to make a game for someone like my mum or people who need this sort of thing. So I think that's the biggest benefit for working in this industry. You get to give those experiences to people. As for challenges, completing games, but it's hard. You have so many requirements. You got performance issues, platform issues, certification. You've got financial pressures, especially if you're working for a publisher. They're putting up the money, so you need to get this stuff done to a time frame of that they've set. It's just difficult at times to handle all those different responsibilities and requirements.
For sure. Okay, I think we're pretty much out of time for today, unfortunately. Before we go, we would love to hear any last pieces of advice that you have for aspiring game devs.
Yeah, I guess my main suggestion would be to just make games and finish them. It's really important to finish the projects because that's where you learn the most from. And if you can try and handle things which most games handle, user options, different localization. Like these things aren't fun, but they are so important to understand how they flow in because once you've done it a few times, you know in advance what it's going to affect. It's going to affect your interfaces and how they flow on. It's going to affect the type of game you're making, the assets you're making. So that would be my number one.
Cool.
Cool. Yeah, I guess that's all the time that we have today. Thank you once again so much for joining us for this stream. We have programmers and game devs and students all over Australia tuning in today. Before we head off, I think Craig has some cool, exciting news for us as well.
Yeah. If anyone's enjoyed what they've heard Ben speak about and want to start their career as well, August 16th, we have an open day coming up at AAE. There'll be online options if you're unable to make it to a campus. So definitely keep an eye on the AAE website. You're able to register for that and get the latest news about industry speakers that we'll have at the open day and how you can get started as well. And then in a few years' time, once you've been in the industry, after you've gone through AAE, we'll get you on the stream and interview you and find out all about your stories. But thanks so much for everyone for joining us. Next week, we'll have another live stream, so stay tuned for that, and information will be coming out soon. See ya.